The Book of Psalms, verse 11. In God I trust, and am not afraid. What can man do to me? Hi, ladies and gentlemen. So, this is a Christian ministry, kind of like a social community about nerd stuff. It's called Christian RPG Gamers. So, today I was going to talk a little bit about Pillars of Eternity. It's kind of it's like a Dungeons and Dragons sort of like a spin-off series. Um, it's like a video game series it's like a medieval fantasy. Um, it's okay. So I'm gonna be real. This is one of my favorite the D&D style games. Probably because it's one of my first ones I really liked and played too. Not saying the first one is always the best, but it's very subjective. But I mean, honestly, I was thinking about making a walkthrough of it too. I was questioning whether I really want I might take a break from making walkthroughs on this channel for a little while, but I might also make a walkthrough at some point too. So we'll see what happens. All right, so let's watch a little video before I start the video I'm making. Okay, so obviously fair use is a thing. So that's the trailer from Obsidian. Okay, so one thing I guess that I would start this off by saying is sometimes in life is what you make of it, and you can choose to see things from whichever perspective you wish to look at things from. You can look at life from a cynical point of view. You can look at it from like a more optimistic point of view. You can try to be more neutral. Again, I also think that as a Christian, you can look at an entertainment franchise and only see the absolute worst in something, or you can also choose to try to find good things in it too. So again, I personally believe this is a choice that people have when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons, when it comes to when it comes to fantasy, when it comes to more realistic stuff. It's a choice you have to look at. Now, maybe this is what my little moral Christian message will kind of be about, right? The idea of choice, and how you want to look at one's perspective and point of view. So, again, you can look at like a fantasy game, like Dungeons and Dragons, like Pillars of Eternity is basically like D&D, and you can look at this and just see all the worst in it. You can see, obviously, there is spells. There is they're quote unquote, they have like 4 or 5 different like deity like creatures or beings. There's a lot of really dark things that can be in here. again, you can see all the worst aspects of it, and you can look at it like, oh, the game came out 11 years ago. You can look at the mechanics as being kind of poor. You can look at whatever you want to find. You can find the worst in things, or you can find the best in things. And I would make the argument, I think I'm going to try and make the argument. I know I've said a lot of things in the past, right? But, I mean, I think we should try to look at things with an optimistic point of view. So, again, there's like 1,000 things inside this game series, right? Why not decide you're going to look at it from the best point of view rather than the worst point of view? I mean, obviously, there's a lot of stuff in this that can be dangerous, but there's a lot of value to it also. Again, you get to go on an amazing adventure. It has great music. And, honestly, these types of games, I kind of just like playing it on story mode. It makes the combat smooth. It makes it simple. You don't have to think and worry about it too much. It just makes the game easier. The combat is okay. It's a little bit old. It's a little bit janky. And I personally like to play these types of games more on the story level. It still requires some level of challenge, but that's okay. Again, you get to go out and you get together with a group of some, allies, and you get to go on this amazing, this amazing long adventure, and eventually you get to uncover a bunch of clues. You get to fight maybe a couple different dragons. You get to build your own little base. Again, there's a lot of fun. You get to explore the world, pick up loot, go on all these quests, make these moral choices. It's just a really fun, it's a genuinely good, fun experience. And I think this is kind of the way I want to look at things, right? Try to find the best in things. Obviously, acknowledge that there is some dangerous stuff in it, right? But try to be more optimistic. And you can, again, it's great for storytelling. It's great for going on, and you get to have some fun. If I make a YouTube video on it, or I make a walkthrough, other people can enjoy it. I can put a Christian spin on it, right? In holiness, glorify God. And again, you get to fight against kobolds. There's and there's all sorts of skill checks. The game, there's a lot of fun. There's a lot of fun in D&D, and there is some dangerous stuff in it too. Yeah, I think the goal really for myself in a lot of ways is just to try to look for more positive things rather than negative things. It's not saying you don't have to be stupid when it comes to negative things, but try to be positive, right? Try to find value in life, and maybe stop. Don't have to consume excessive negativity all the time either. Have wits about you too. So yeah, I think there's a lot of fun to the Pillars of Eternity, and there's like 20 different D&D style games, right? Again, you get to make your own character. You get to build your own backstory. Where did you come from? Why did you come here? And again, and you get to pick your class. Generally, I try to avoid being like a follower of the devil. I'd rather be more like a God-fearing character, right? Or the best I can really do with what I'm given. There's fighters. You can play as like a paladin. You can be like a ranger. You can get a little animal companion if you're a ranger. They have a ton of classes you get to pick from. You can build your own team too. I think there's a lot of fun. And there's a great, again, that's another thing about the game, right? There's a great storytelling. And again, and you can vanquish demons. You can deal with some of your own personal problems. I think there's a lot of value to be had in like a D&D world, right? Now, they don't make that many D&D style games anymore. They made Baldur's Gate 3. I really can't. They made the Pathfinder 2, and they made Baldur's Gate 3. I really can't remember that many D&D games they've made. At least in more recent time. There's a whole bunch of old ones, but there's not that many newer ones. But they still kind of make some of these games every once in a while. So yeah, I think going forward, I think a good mentality is try to find things that you can love. and you can enjoy. I mean, our lives are just so short. I mean, I'm not saying you have to be stupid either, right? Again, like, I've loved playing this game. And in a lot of ways, one of the things, another thing that I love about YouTube, right, is I can share the experience with other people. And no, not everything has to just be about myself. And, that's one thing I love about YouTube also, right? You get to, you can make a cool story and we can all kind of go together. And as Christians, or maybe you're not a believer out there either, right? We all can kind of go together. You can socialize, or we can go on this journey together. And I could just share some of my experiences, and maybe if you want, you can share some of yours too. And I just, that's something I love, right? I mean, I'm trying to be a little more positive, and a little bit less toxic, and a little bit more friendly, right? Yeah, I definitely think it's really good for one's mental health too. To try to be a little more positive in life. It's so easy to be negative, but it's a negative downward spiral. And it's better to be on a positive upward spiral than a negative downward one. I mean, there's nothing wrong. I mean, I think this is probably a good Christian message, right? Try to be more positive in life and try to be less negative. Again, you don't have to be like toxically positive at the same time, always happy no matter what. But maybe try to put an effort. Maybe in a sense, having extra positivity, and then trying to be more positive and less negative. Maybe one can make the argument that is known as having faith, and that faith is a good thing. Obviously life can drag you down, and it can just crush you every day. But you can still choose to find the best in life rather than the worst. And that's one thing I like about kind of like the D&D adventures, or even just the RPG style adventures, right? Is there's always another opportunity around the corner. It could be a side quest, it could be the main story, it could be something like making your own little adventure, right? It even could be the tabletop, pen and paper, right? There's always another quest, and there's always another opportunity to have a moral chance. You can seek to be better. You can do something new. You always get another opportunity in life, and you can choose in holiness to serve God with it if you want to. We have some kind of free will. You can choose to use it to find and seek the best in life. And I mean, again, like you can choose to look for good things and try to pursue after those. What does the Bible say? Seek and you shall find. You knock on the door will be open to you. Ask and you will receive. Seek and find. And as a Christian, those are the words of, our Lord and Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. A God the Son. And we have the choice in life. You can pursue after good, or you can pursue after evil. You can spend all day looking at everything from the worst possible lens and the worst possible light, if you want to, or you can try. Or you can try to seek out better things. And the same with anything, right? They could be fantasy worlds, or it could be realistic worlds. People can become very negative. The internet culture can be very negative too. And I mean, it's easy to get sucked into extreme negativity all the time. I mean, sometimes negative is healthy and important. But again, it's easy to be negative, and it's really hard to be positive in life. And again, I think this is something I like. Again, you tie this back more to like D&D, or Pillars of Eternity is it's basically an extension of D&D. So yeah, again, that's one thing I like about Pillars of Eternity and the other D&D style games. Again, you can choose if you want to try to find good things in this world, that the people who made this world, or in holiness God himself allowed this world to be created, or maybe he helped build it, or Obsidian Studios, or whoever they did made this, right? And the same thing with life. You can seek after good things, or you can seek after evil things. And sometimes in life we have a choice. And again, yeah, and then like what are some aspects from Pillars of Eternity specifically, right? The idea of like one's soul, that we have a soul, and Pillars of Eternity explores that idea. You're born into the world of Pillars of Eternity, then you die, and your soul goes back into some kind of like a wheel or something, and then you kind of come back out again as a new person, and you don't remember really who you used to be. And it's like, I think like the idea of hope. That again, you only get a limited amount of time in this world. But again, we every day we have a choice. You can choose to try to do better, or you can give in and do the worst. And you got free will. And you're one day you're gonna die, and you're gonna leave this earth. And honestly, you're never gonna come back to this earth again. Even in their Pillars of Eternity, they come back as a different person. Maybe you have the same soul in this game. Obviously, it's a fictional fantasy world, right? But you come back as a different person. And again, like we only have so much time, and we only get to live one life. But I would argue the argument, like if you again, as a Christian, you only get one chance in this life. I mean, I believe we're going to spend eternity as a Christian. If you are truly saved, I believe you're going to go to heaven for eternity. But choose the better route in life, and then worst case scenario, leave behind something better in this life than when you were here before, right? It's like, maybe you made mistakes. Try to leave behind something better. I mean, maybe you sinned, but maybe you can do better too. And like every day, you have another chance, another opportunity. Choose to do something new, and choose to do something better. And the same thing with like RPG games. I've beaten this game I think 2 separate times. I honestly can't even remember. I can go back to it again, and I get a brand new opportunity to start completely fresh. And you can choose to do good, or you can choose to do evil. And I would say, choose good over evil. Sowing into good and seeking after good is worth infinitely more than seeking after evil and, sowing evil. Evil will reap you bad things, and good will reap you good things. And yeah, I mean, that's probably that's something about this game, right? And that's something about, D&D in general. Again, like Dungeons and Dragons is all about choices. And it's all about, it's about you, the individual. It's about your characters, about the story you make, and what you leave behind. And, I mean, the better route is to be good. And it's trying to find things that you can enjoy, right? Again, like maybe you disagree with certain things. Try to find things you agree with. Like you can go back out, and you can try to seek out justice. And help. You can try to help make the world a better place. You have this like, and in Pillars of Eternity, you're granted the ability to see people's souls, and to see the stuff that they've gone through and they've experienced, and you can help seek out justice. Again, like you can serve revenge and justice on behalf of those who can't do it for themselves. That's a net good, right? Again, like you have the ability to be greedy, or you have the ability to use your resources properly as a good steward. And I would say, try to be a good steward. Try to be less greedy. That's a choice. I mean, being greedy is a choice. Maybe if you're fighting in a battlefield, and there's a whole bunch of enemy soldiers or something, or allied soldiers that died. Maybe you could just choose to leave their loot behind. Maybe like the big bad enemy, you pick up his stuff, right? But like all the other soldiers, you could just choose to honor the dead. in that scenario. That's like a really, that's a net good. That's like a net positive you can do. And the same thing with like The Witcher 3. I was playing the game, right? And there's all those soldiers who fought in this war. You can walk by and you can just pick up all their stuff and sell it to the stores or whatever. Or you can just choose to honor the dead. And I mean, like, that's a net good. You can do a good thing in the world. You can choose to be honorable. And that's a strong net positive, right? Like, that's an example of something good you can do. And you can avenge somebody who was murdered, right? That could be a positive. And like, there's lots of good things you can do. Again, like, you get to build your own little base. You can hire people on, pay them money. You can help build an economy. You can give people opportunities to find fulfillment and satisfaction and something good they can do with their life. I think that's something that's positive at the end of the day. There is a lot of good that can come from, RPG style games, if you're willing to look for them and put the work in. And generally, even in-game, they cost a lot of resources, and you lose a lot of opportunities. Again, like, now that I'm starting to think about some more of the game, right? So when you have your own base, you get to become a judge. I cannot pronounce the name of the, but it's like Kaden, I think. You get to be a judge, and like there's a time when there's there's slaves, and you can go out and you can try to free them. That's a good thing, right? Freeing people who are in captivity, that's a good thing. And like, you can judge fairly, and you can be a virtuous person, kind of like even in like Thronebreaker. I might have to make a video on Thronebreaker talking about it. I might have to make a walkthrough of that too, because The Witcher is just so well written. Again, agree or disagree, it is a very well written. Again, you can do a lot of good. And again, you can serve these bounties. You can find bounties for other people. Like, there's some enemies out there, people or beings who did a bunch of bad things, and you can hunt them down for justice. And then there is some biblical themes. They got their quote-unquote gods in this game. Again, maybe they represent God to some extent. I mean, it's a fantasy world, but I mean, who's to say, really, at the end of the day? You can, I know there's a moment in the game when you, again, like, it gets a little bit morally gray. As a Christian, we don't really support the quote-unquote gods. But, I mean, they're just like story elements. They're fantasy fictional world characters that don't exist. But they kind of exist in this game to serve a purpose, right? Again, you can go out and you can pursue after finding all these things. And at the very end of one of these quests, you can go out and say, you know what? I'm going to take this quest item, and I'm going to rebury it. I'm going to go rebury it out in like the sand somewhere. So that way the next person who comes by, they can go out and they can find it after me. It's just really cool. Like, again, like, I guess going back to the idea of, seeking and finding, right? Very biblical idea. And that's a really cool thing. And you can see like kind of a biblical story or action kind of come into effect. I know that in the Bible there's a Bible verse talking about it is the glory of kings to search out a matter, but it is the glory of God to conceal a matter. And basically the idea is in Christianity from God, when God created Earth, or he went out and he put all these different secrets in the world. He dug them in the ground. He put them in different lost civilizations. There's all sorts of mysteries and artifacts and special things out there that God hid in the world. And it brings him great pleasure to hide these things so that other people can go on like a scavenger hunt, and maybe one day they can find them. It brings God in heaven in holiness, great pleasure to watch a king or a group of people go out and try to seek out these mysteries that he hid. And it brings the king a lot of glory and happiness inside to go find all that stuff. And that's just a really cool biblical aspect, right? Something, I mean, that it's maybe subjective, but it brings a person a lot of happiness. And also in holiness, I believe it brings God a lot of happiness. And there was that moment in the game that reflected Christianity, and maybe in a perverse way to some people, but it reminded me of like the Bible a little bit too. And that's something cool, right? Seeing scripture in a game that you can kind of reflect off of, and that's just a cool thing. And like even that other example I used, these honestly are probably very minor spoilers. Most people probably won't even run into them. They're like jank side quests you may or may not even find. Again, like the idea where you can serve vengeance on somebody's behalf who died, and you see their soul because you have some soul powers or something. And you can learn their story, and you can try to avenge them. Oh yeah, and another quest that came up I was thinking about earlier. I think I was thinking about this a couple days ago. This is a really okay. I'm gonna be honest. Like again, this specific quest might be a little bit of a spoiler here. There's some very minor spoilers I'm talking about. I'm not gonna go into it too deep. But there's this other quest where it's a quest based off of free will, off of the idea of free will, and whether a person really should have free will or not. And it's honestly the idea based off of the good idea of free will. So there's this like bandit. He's going around. He's just kind of like a bad piece of garbage human being. And there's some kind of like a dead spirit being who is trying to manipulate this person, his inner person, to try to make him. He wants to basically take away this person's free will and take away all the evil in him. And he's going to perform some like spirit ritual or something, and purposely put like literal goodness inside of this person, which makes this quest kind of morally gray in its own right. And then you come along, and you have the ability to either just do nothing and just let it happen, or you can try to intervene and say you're not going to do this. So again, it's one of those scenarios where like it's kind of like good versus good. It's not something I really feel. It doesn't make me happy inside, right? Fighting against my own team is generally a bad idea. But again, it's the idea of free will. Like, should a person be allowed to have free will? Even if that means they use their free will, they could do evil with it. And should you restrict someone's ability to purposely put good inside someone, and even if it takes away their free will? So it's like option one, this person is going to be forcibly changed against their will. Also, this is all done in secret. No one would ever know, right? This person is now going to be more good going forward. And you can either do that, but they lose their free will. Or you can stop this ritual from being performed, and this person will continue on in their original ways. And they're probably more of a neutral person, but they also have evil tendencies. So this person has their free will, but now they can do bad things again. And it's one of these kind of like, this is a very morally gray dilemma. And this is kind of one of those scenarios where it's like, good versus good. What is really the morally right thing to do in this story? To be honest with somebody, I really don't know the answer. I mean, I generally believe in the idea of moral goodness comes from God. But I also believe that God in heaven and holiness, He gives human beings free will. Okay, so yeah. There's a lot of cool things in this story, right? So yeah, that's some hypothetical things that are cool. All right. Well, I might make a walkthrough on this story. But we'll see what happens. If God is willing, that is, right? I want to get back and kind of into the swing of doing a walkthroughs again. I think I'm gonna end this video here, though. Yeah, I would say I'm leaving it off. Seek out good rather than evil. Glorify God. All right. Thanks. God is good.